Today's project is a little bit different. I'm not actually building anything today. Instead, I'm going to be testing out one of my new favorite finishes, and that is the Waterlox TrueTone finish. Now they have 11 different colors of the Buff In color finish, and then they have their Buff In finish without color. And I used this finish on my dining room table that I built last fall, and I am absolutely obsessed with it. The table, the wood feels like satin. It is so smooth to the touch. There's no high gloss. It almost looks like it's unfinished, but it's absolutely gorgeous. And so I want to see what all of the different colors are going to look like on different species of wood. So as I'm planning my next project, I'm ready to dive in. So I've actually got 6 different wood species here, and anything from the first one here is a select pine, I've got poplar, I've got alder, and then I've got some more fancy hardwoods like maple, walnut, and a white oak. So these are all woods that I like to work with, whether it's a small project or a big project, and I thought it'd be fun to see what these different colors are going to look like and plan ahead for my next big build. So let's dive right in and start applying some of this finish to all the different species of wood. So I have laid out one of each board of each species, and we're going to start with the lighter colors of the TrueTone stain, and I'm going to apply it to one square on each of these boards. Now, one of the reasons I absolutely love this stain is because it is super easy to apply. Now, normally I would wear gloves, but because I'm not going to be fully saturating my rag, I'm going to not worry about gloves for this video. And I've just cut shop rags into little squares. And I'm starting with this one. It's called Natural. And it's as easy to apply as grabbing a little bit of the finish, and then you just buff it right in. Now the Natural one, it looks like it is really just pulling out all of that color that is naturally found in the wood. But it does seem to have a little bit of an orange tone to it, or an amber tone. A little bit of richness to the wood, which I think is really more visible in the white oak. Now this, we're putting it on the maple now. So that one has very little notice. And the alder, it definitely is bringing out a lot of richness in it. And I do love alder because it's been referred to as the cheap man's cherry, but I love the tone of alder. I've used it in quite a few things. It's really easy to work with, and I love the warmth of it. The poplar, again, it's just kind of barely bringing that out. And then the last one here is a select pine. Just making that pop a little bit. Okay, so that is Natural. So next, let's go with pickled white. I'm not sure what the difference between regular white and pickled white is, but the pickled white, the sticker looks almost like it's a little grayer. And add that to the white oak. Now this almost gives me a little bit of a lime wash feel. This is it on the walnut. Almost feels a little sad to add it to the walnut, but it is just soaking in and giving that lime wash look, which I absolutely love. That white oak is gorgeous with it, and the walnut, it makes it look very raw. The color without that deepness to it. Okay, now for the maple, I doubt we're going to see much of a difference here because maple is such a light wood and it doesn't have a lot of open grain for that to seep into to kind of pop. Yeah, it looks almost non-existent right there. And here is the alder. Now I did test the regular white, I believe it was, on my dining room table on a scrap, and I did like the look of it because, again, it almost looks like it's a little bit lime washed, but wasn't really the look I was going for. And that's what it does on this alder. It definitely lightens it up. And this is the poplar. And the poplar, this piece in particular, has a good amount of green tone in it. And that is definitely going to be minimized. Actually loving the look of this. It's almost like a really pretty whitewash on that poplar. And then the last one here is the select pine. Okay, there we go. That's definitely a really fun color, and I can see finding some really fun ways to use it, especially on this white oak. So now we're going to look at white compared to that pickling white and see what the difference is. And even just opening the two up, you can see that the pickling white is definitely more gray and the regular white is more warm white. So we'll see how that looks on the different woods. It feels a lot thinner of a white as well. It's the pickling white definitely, as you saw me putting on, had a lot more white in it. So that one is definitely soaking into that open grain there, but it's not as stark as the pickling white. And here's the walnut. Now, yeah, this is definitely bringing out a little bit of that richness. So it's not as light as the pickling white, which I actually thought it would have been opposite. So I'm really glad I'm trying these out. And again, on the maple, I doubt this is going to really do anything for us. You can barely tell any difference in that one. And here's the alder. I'm really loving that pickling white on the alder. It's got a very pretty color to it and a little bit toned down. The regular white, I'm not seeing too much of that. And then this is the poplar again. And last, we'll add it to the select pine. And this one, I'm barely noticing anything on the select pine. So if you definitely want more of a almost whitewashed look or a bleached look to your wood, I would suggest going with the pickling white. It's almost giving it a very bleached look. The regular white is a much more subtle white. Okay, the next three we're going to try on the lighter wood boards, or sorry, on all the boards, but the lighter stains are grays. So we've got frost, ash, and a charcoal. So I guess they're not really all lighter, but they are all gray tone. So I thought I'd put them next to each other so I could see the difference. So we'll start with the lighter gray, which is called frost. And if you look at the coloring on these, they are definitely gray. So this one, the frost, and this is going on the white oak to begin with. And this has given me, again, a little bit of that lime wash look, but it's definitely got gray tones, where that pickling white was more white tones. And on the walnut, it's interesting how it is not soaking in as much to that walnut. Almost, you gotta make sure you take off the excess. And that's actually a very unique way to make that grain pop. The next is going to be the gray on the maple. This is definitely graying up that light maple. Now we're going to the alder board here. And I did notice when doing the alder for my dining room table, that's what I made that out of, The alder tend to soak up this stain really, really well. That gray on it is definitely graying that out a little bit. It's probably not my favorite on that alder. I like the little bit less gray of it. And here is the poplar. You can still see a lot of that green of the poplar coming through. I'm guessing the poplar is going to probably be better with the darker stains. And the Select Pine, now this is giving it a really definite gray appearance. So if you're looking for a gray, almost a gray whitewash, this on the Select Pine, without being too stark, is absolutely beautiful for a gray wood. And I'm just layering that up just a little bit more. That's got a really fun look to it. I love the gray on that Select Pine. Okay, we're going to the next is ash, darker gray. Now I'm interested to see how this is going to work with these. Now this one is definitely a gray. It doesn't sit on top of it as much as those white and the lighter gray did. So that has a beautiful gray tone, and you can see it really soaking in to the grain pattern on that white oak. Next is, this is the, walnut, my goodness. The medium gray on the walnut is definitely giving it an interesting look. It's got some richness to it, which is really kind of fun, but it's not a true, really dark walnut. And then the maple with the gray. Now here we're seeing some definite color. This is, if you're looking for a gray furniture, that is a really pretty, so the the maple has definitely less of that visible grain pattern, so it's giving you a much smoother gray on that. Okay, and the alder. So that soaked in very well to that alder, and you can definitely see a lot of gray on that. Not sure how I like it compared to a little bit of a whiter look. Now on the poplar, it'd be interesting to see if that helps to hide some of this green that I have. Yeah, that's actually a really fun color. It's definitely got a little bit of a green to it, but it's very gray. And on the Select Pine. And again, the Select Pine is just popping with these more gray colors and giving us just an absolutely true, what I would think of when you want a gray stain look. And the last one on this is going to be our classic gray. Now this one is quite dark in the jar. So let's see what it looks like. This one has a lot of dark gray in it. Oh, wow. But looking at that on this white oak, it almost has a aged barnwood look, and that is really pretty. And this is the walnut. Now this is making that walnut definitely look charcoal. Lots of gray tones, almost picking up a little hint of purple there. And on the maple, There, the maple, definitely you can see the difference in the two grays. Really pretty. This is alder. Now, I didn't really like that medium gray on the alder, but this dark gray and the light gray, I'm really liking the way that looks. It's a very unique look, but you're seeing a lot of that grain pattern. And then on the poplar, and again, the poplar, you're still seeing a little bit of the green. Obviously, if you were able to find some that had a little bit less green to it, but that gray is really pretty. It's definitely a charcoaly look to it. And then on the select pine. A little bit more on this. Yeah, that's beautiful on that pine. And I didn't think I was a gray stain person, but I am loving the look of this and actually really loving the look of that. And I think I would find a definite use for these in my woodworking. So now I'm going to move these aside, set up the next 6, and we're going to look at some browns and some that have a little bit of red in them. Okay, I've got my new boards and I have 5 more stains to do. And these ones, like I said, they're the browns and some of them with a little bit more red tones to them. And then I'm going to leave the one completely unfinished so we can see it compared to the other ones. So we're going to start with some more brown ones. I've got clay, nutmeg, and ebony. So we'll start with those 3. So this clay definitely looks very dark brown. And here it is on the white oak. Now this has a little bit more of an ashy tone to me, kind of an ashy brown. It's going right into that grain on that, making it really pop. Almost makes that white oak look a little bit like a red oak. I'm going to add it to the walnut. And it's giving the walnut definitely a little bit of redness too. I thought this one wouldn't have as much red in it, but I'm seeing that on the walnut there. And then maple. See, on the maple, I see that ashy brown. So it doesn't have any reddening on that maple. It's definitely a little bit of an ashier brown. And on the alder, I see a little more ashy on the alder as well. It's got some really interesting color on that. Almost making certain areas a little bit darker than others. And this is poplar. And this makes the poplar look so rich and expensive. The ash actually is working with that slightly green tinge to that, but you still see a little bit of green. And then the select pine. Wow, that grain just totally popped on that. You're definitely seeing the difference there. It's really pretty. So yeah, I'm seeing definitely a little more ashiness in this clay. It's really pretty though. Okay, so nutmeg. Now the sticker on top doesn't seem like it's got much red in it, but looking at the actual stain, it definitely has a little more redness to it than I thought originally. Yeah, that definitely has redness. So this is it on the white oak. And like I said, the sticker on top didn't look red, but that definitely has red in it. almost a little cherry look to that. This is the walnut. Lots of red on top of that walnut there. Yeah. Almost gives it a little bit of a exotic look if you're looking for more of those exotics but don't want to spend quite that high price tag. This again is maple. Definitely can see the red on the maple there. And I'm guessing that that red will really pop with the alder since it already has a little bit of a redness to it. And I was right. It's almost like a alder just really intensified there. And this is the poplar. Now the red is canceling out a little bit of that green, which if you know much about color theory is something you would expect. So it's really making that poplar look like the alder or like a cherry. And then this is the select pine. And you can see a little bit more of the brown on the pine. It's not pulling out as much of the red, but it definitely has a red tone to it. So the nutmeg, I'm definitely seeing more red tones in it. It's definitely got some interesting color combinations here. Okay, so the next we're going to go with ebony, which I'm guessing is going to be our darkest. And it looks very, very black. And I am right. The ebony is our black. The color dot on top did not show, but it is definitely showing here on the wood. And that is absolutely beautiful in that grain. I'm going to put that ebony on the walnut next. And it is making it super dark, starting with that dark walnut. Looks extremely rich and dark there. Really pretty. Almost not like a walnut because it's gray on top, but it is still seeing that grain pattern. It's so pretty. And this is maple. And there you can really see, because that was such a light maple, the difference between the gray, like the black and these other ones, and it's really pulling out that grain. This piece of maple has a lot more grain pattern on it than the other one did. And here's the alder. And again, it's really pulling out that grain. You see that subtle base of the alder. It's really pretty. So next is poplar. Now the poplar is really soaking up this dark, and we're getting a very dark, and not a true black. It's definitely still a stain, but it's really definitely giving us a lot of darkness on the poplar. And the last is the select pine, which I'm guessing is going to pop this grain just like the other ones did, and I am right. There we go. So that is your ebony. Okay, now these two, the stickers on top definitely have more red tones to them. It's chestnut and red mahogany, but the chestnut actually did not have as much red as I anticipated. This is the one I used on my dining room table. So let's test it out. It has a lot of orange in that white oak, but you are getting a lot of that pop of the grain. And the next will be chestnut on the walnut. And it's almost lightening that walnut up, which is really interesting. Don't know that that's my favorite. It's got a very orange tone to it, very 70s look, but if that is what you're going for, that might be a really good option. And here it is on the the maple. And that's just adding a little bit of color. It's got a little amberness to it. And on the alder, again, this is the one I used for my dining room table, which was built out of alder, and I just loved the warmth it added to it. It made it really pop. And poplar. And again, this one's almost canceling out some of that green for the poplar, which is really good because then you can use poplar as a cheaper alternative, but it helps you to get some more expensive wood looks. And here is the chestnut on the select pine. Again, really, really highlighting that grain. Got a little bit of that amber look to it. Okay, and now for the last one is our red mahogany. So this one I am guessing we are going to have lots of red tones in. Definitely has almost a purple red appearance. And wow, that's really fun. Again, this is giving you almost that exotic look. And I'm guessing on this walnut, it's going to have almost a zebra wood with that purple tones. Maybe a little darker than a zebra wood, but it definitely gives that walnut a little bit of that, purpleness to it. And I meant purple heart, not zebra wood. My brain is gone, sorry. Okay, maple. Oh, actually, that's your purple heart right there. Very pretty purpley color. Now we're putting it on the alder with those warmer tones underneath. It's definitely less purpley looking and definitely more red on that because of the base tones. Now for the green tinged poplar, a little bit more there. It's definitely having a purple effect on it. A little more green, a little more red there too. And then the last one is that select pine. And that looks very much like a mahogany board right there. Wow. Okay. Well, that is all of the colors. Now the last square, I am going to be applying the Buff In Tung Oil Finish, but we're going to wait till tomorrow. These need to dry for 24 hours before the finish is applied to the top of them. And I want the finish on it so I know a true representation of exactly what it's going to look like when I finish my finished pieces. So we will let them dry and we'll come back tomorrow. So it's been 24 hours. We've let the color-infused tung oil soak in and dry up with lots of airflow. So today I am dying to remove the tape and to really see the difference between the raw wood and this finish. But first I'm going to be adding, this is the TrueTone Buff In Tung Oil Finish. That way I'm getting a true representation of what the wood is actually going to look like on a finished project that I'm going to do. So I'm going to hurry up and add that to all of my samples. Then we can pull off the tape and have all of the pictures of what the wood looks like. Okay. really love being able to see the actual tone of the wood when sanded compared to it when finished. And a lot of these are really surprising me. So I'm gonna keep taking off all of this tape and then we'll do a final discussion. So this was such a fun experiment to do because just looking at the swatches on a website, there were colors that I probably wouldn't have chosen because I didn't really like the way they looked, but seeing them on different species of wood, I am really drawn to them, which has really been fun. Like these grays on the oak, it's given me such a beautiful kind of worn barnwood-y, but not too rustic. I'm loving the grays there. Also, the whites on these lighter woods are giving you that completely raw, unfinished look. If you use a natural or even just the tung oil finish, it's definitely deepening the wood and giving it that warmth that usually we love. But what if you want it to just look raw? Well, these whites on the pine with the tung oil on top, so it's fully sealed and protected, literally looks like you haven't done anything to the wood. So if you're looking for that raw wood, these lighter ones, the whites are perfect for that. And then having some of these darker tones are a really great way to get that exotic look to maybe less exotic and more accessible and cheaper woods for your projects. So I'm going to make sure to take really good pictures, detailed pictures of all of these samples that I have done, and they're going to be up on the blog so you can take a look at which finishes you like with which TrueTone finish, and then you can use them on your next project. So if you liked what you saw, definitely hit subscribe and leave a comment letting me know which was your favorite finish today.